So, hello guys, I'm back from another video, and today we're talking about what if Belle was a B.O.W. So, in the last video, we talked about how we're gonna be skipping over some parts because they're not really important. One of them is basically after Belle basically gets his new armor, including his new sword, they would start leaving. And also, um, after basically all of the girls basically decide to go to a shopping spree, or basically just like decide to do a shopping spree because why not? It's just like in the anime. Well, except for Leafia, because Leafia wants to, or at least wanted to go with Eyes to the monster to cheer her up about something, but she couldn't because, she decided to go on a shopping spree with the rest of the girls. As for Belle, well, Belle would gladly want to join because he's quite curious about this monsterphilia thing. So, after going to that place, still wearing the mask because this is quite noticeable. So, after a while of just basically watching all of these monsters fighting, apparently there was a breakout. So, all of these monsters are basically causing a ruckus through the city, as when Belle is basically fighting some of them, apparently those are not normal monsters because they didn't really turn into dust. So, they turned into, or not really turned into, they're more like actual B.O.Ws. They were turned into B.O.Ws for some reason, which Belle was confused. But Belle decided to just like ignore it and start fighting. After a while of clashing through these, B.O.Ws, he would defeat every single one of them, as many of the people call him a hero. But for Leafia, she was quite sad and also quite, angry at herself for basically causing this, problem and also causing Belle to basically have to deal with it. But Belle would tell her that he didn't really have a problem with that. Besides, he kind of liked the whole, monsterphilia thing. She was quite happy, and that was basically the episode. Not technically, because we moved to a different perspective at the time where, after the whole incident, they apparently got attacked by one of the Lost Progress virus that decided to yeet out of one of the dead carcasses of the monster. So, after one of them gets infected by one of them, they would be killed, as one person is basically watching in the distance. A man that's actually working for Ragnar. Apparently, Ragnar is still alive. If you don't know, Ragnar is in, the first episode, which I talked about, where he's an actual bad guy. Like an evil-ass doctor, just like in every single, Resident Evil game. So, yeah, he's gonna be pretty important. And apparently, this guy is infected with some of the viruses, including gaining the power to, I don't know, maybe, gain, reptile-style, hands and things like that. Not only that, he can jump pretty far, and every time he jumps, these black leeches would basically come out of him. Which, if you don't know, which you probably know in, one of the recent games. Or at least, I think some of you know. So, yeah, that's basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. So, yeah. So, we move to a different perspective. In this case, most of the characters except for Belle and Bette. And in this case, we're moved to the different perspective. In this case, the perspective of Eyes. Apparently, they were all in the office of Loki. Apparently, they were reported to go to the lower levels of the dungeon to talk to a certain person. Apparently, he has a job for them. And apparently, it's important, because something happened at least. So, after they were told of this, they started leaving to go to see what is happening right now. So, as everybody's basically leaving except for Belle and Bette, we move back to Belle and Bette. So, because they're all alone, not technically, I mean, there's still some, random ass members of that, Loki familia, but they're just basically alone at the time, as Belle and Bette are basically having a little bit of a competition. Mostly playing, let's let's talk about like maybe like poker, I guess. Since one of them being bet, as Belle would say this. Poker. I'm not really interested in that game. Besides, I'm not really good at games or anything like that. As Bet would say this. So you're saying you're weak? As Belle would say this. Are you talking about that I'm weak? Again? As usual, you're always talking about weak, strong, or whatever. Can you please get a little bit more creative or something? As you would say this. I can be more creative. Even creativer than you or something like that. As he would say this. As usual. As they would be told by one of the random members to go and see, you know, wait for a second, by Loki. So, after they'd gone through some of the, hallways, they would reach Loki's office. Apparently, they were told to go in by themselves as both of them are basically looking at her. She would say this. So, apparently there's something happening in the sewers after that little incident. As Belle would say this. What do you mean by that, Loki? As Loki would say this. Apparently, during the whole, not really idea, but the whole process of what happened in that incident, where you and Leafia, I think that's the name of the girl, happened in the Monsterphilia. As Belle would say this. Oh yeah, that. As Bet would say this. What are you talking about? I never heard of this. As she would say this. Oh, yeah, you were not a part of that. Apparently, they were attacked by these monsters. Or more specifically, as she would start looking at Belle, as Belle would say this. Apparently, we were attacked by these infected monsters. As he would say this. Wait, are you talking about those monsters that we saw in that forest? As Belle would say this. Exactly. I don't know how they came here or anything like that, but it's definitely not normal. As Loki would say this. Exactly. So, or at least we were told by the guild to maybe investigate the sewers because that's a prime suspect about that little incident. Apparently, some of the monsters came out of the sewer, or at least said most of the witnesses. As Belle would say this. I see. As Bet would say this. I see. So you're telling us that these infected whatevers, they're basically coming through the sewers? That would mean. As she would say this. Yeah, I'm guessing these monsters are invading. Or they think that is. As Belle would say this. I think so. I think it's better for me to start killing them now. As Bet would say this. Now you're speaking my language. As Belle would say this. Well, it is obvious. After all, your language is just violence. As he would say this. What did you say? As he would say this. As usual. As one of them would say this, being Loki. Hey, both of you at least... Can both of you at least at once, just once, have a bit of fun? Or at least, at least be nice to each other? As Bet would say this. No promise in that. As Belle would say this. Agreed. As she would say this. Anyway, you should start leaving. I'll be going with you. As Bet would say this. Really? As Belle would say this. I think that's a bad idea, Loki. I mean, you know what happens when a god and monsters would mix. As she would say this. I know, but I need to see for myself. As Belle would say this. But it's even worse because these monsters are infected. Not only that, infected with the same viruses, or at least similar viruses, to mine. As she would say this. I know, but just... the guild told me about this, so it's better for me to just, look around, maybe check. Because after all, I am your god. Or your goddess in this case. As Belle would say this. I guess so, then. So, what time? As she would say this, I think it's better for us to go maybe maybe in 2 hours. As Belle would say this, okay, guess I'll go prepare and get my suit. As Beth would say this, I guess resting time is over. Can't wait to beat these so-called infected monsters. He starts laughing as Belle would say this. Oh, whatever. So, after going back to their specific rooms, they would start preparing. As for Bell, he would unsheath his knife and putting it in his holster. So, as both of them are basically prepared, 2 hours later, as for Loki, she would wear just nothing. As in nothing, I mean she's basically just wearing just her normal ass outfit. As Belle would say this, Loki, why are you not wearing armor or anything like that? As Beth would say this, you get used to it. As Belle would say this, wait, does she always go on missions? But I thought, as she would say this, hey, it's a fashion statement. As you would say this, a fashion statement that will get you killed at least. As she would say this, don't worry, besides, I got you. As she would basically punch him in the shoulder, as he would say this. That hurt. As he would start healing himself, as he would say this. Never mind. As she would say this. So, let's go. As both of them would start, leaving, as they go where the sight of one of the monsters, or at least one of the monsters, basically going through the sewer, as they would see one person. In this case, one of the guild members, as they would say this, Miss Loki, Mr. Bet, and who are you? As Belle would say this, I'm a new recruit for for the Loki Familia. As she would say this, ooh, a new member. And what with the mask? As you would say this, I prefer not to show my face. As she would say this, oh, so you're shy? As you would say this, no. As she would say this, fine, suit yourself. Anyway, we found some evidence that these monsters, or whatever they seem to have gone into the sewer and basically come out of there. As Beth would say this, now this is gonna be fun. So, let's go in. As he would rip off the manhole cover as he would jump down. Bell, he would decide to just go in the normal way and just use the ladder. And the same goes for Loki. As Loki would basically fall down on Bell's, chest, he would say this, ow, that hurt. As he would start, rehealing, as he would say this, never mind. As she would say this, so you're saying that I'm fat? As he would say this, not necessarily. As she would say this, much better. So, as they started both of them would start leaving, as everybody's just calmly going through the sewers, but Beth is just basically just a nightmare for him. After all, he is part wolf, so his enhanced senses, mostly his nose, would be amplified in this area, which, trust me, that sewers, well, it would be not unkempt. There was so much sewage, and it smelled bad, as Beck would have to use some sort of something like a mask or something to at least cover his, nose from this agonizing pain of smell. As he would say this, God, it smells bad. As Belle would say this, it doesn't really smell bad to me. As Beth would say this, because you're wearing a goddamn mask that it smells, not as bad as mine. As he would say this, not really. As he would explain that in his time during his experiments, or at least during the time when he was being experimented on, he would have to endure several, and I mean several, types of smells. Mostly poison, but mostly chemicals that smelled awful, by the way, and gore, mostly corpses and many other things, which he slowly and slowly and slowly get used to by the day. As one of them would say this, being Loki. So they basically did horrible experiments on you? As he would say this. Well, mostly. At least my mother, Dr. Nikitich, at least acted like a mother, at least, and not as cruelly as the others. As she would say this, huh, your mother actually sounds like a good person. As she would say this, thank you. As she would say this, anyway, we should probably start walking, and they would feel something kind of concerning. They would hear the ground shake a little as Belle would say this. I don't like that feeling. As he would say this, being Bet. Don't you dare jinx it! Wait for a second. As they see a large plant monster, but something is much more prominent. Some woman that's basically connected to the monster is basically screaming out in pain, saying, Kill, kill, kill! As she starts summoning out several more of these plants that resemble almost Venus-like Venus flytraps, and they start charging both at Belle, Bet, and, you know, at Loki. As Belle would start dodging it, as for Bet, he would start carrying Loki. As she would say this, what the heck is happening? And what the heck happened to that girl? As Belle would say this, that is no girl. That's a B.O.W. As she would say this, being Loki. Wait, what? That would mean... As she would say this, kill them, kill them, kill them. That's what I'm ordered. Just kill them. As she would start commanding all of these plants to start charging at both Belle and Bet. As Bet would start shooting out fire, which, obviously, it's effective. As she starts screaming out more in pain, as she would start spewing out something. As Belle would say this, those are spores, and as you'd start smelling them, as she would say this, those are poisonous. Everybody, or at least some of you, I mean, I'm not really effective, or at least effective against these. So, everybody, except for me, start putting on something to cover your nose. As they start putting on something, like for example, for Loki, she starts putting up like for a second, putting up some sort of handkerchief to her nose, and as for Bet, he would start ripping off a piece of his, well, sleeve, and starts using it as some sort of like mask to cover up these spores. As she would start screaming out saying, just kill them, just kill them, just kill them, just kill them. As she would start destroying everything, including those pillars, which they would start causing the ceiling to basically collapse and start crushing on her. As for Beth, start shooting out more fire as she would say this, kill, kill, as she would start raising her hand at Loki, as Belle would say this, don't you dare, as he would basically just like push Loki away, as he would realize that he's in the crossfire, as this gigantic ass like Venus flytrap type monster would start charging at him, or should I say B.O.W, that's basically charging at him, as Belle would say this, God damn it, I feel like I'm about to die. I'm not ready to die. Wait, my skill. Please work. Just please work. As he would say this, devour! As something happens, as his shield would come out, as the shield would grow to immense size, as it would chomp down on this monster, including half of the body of this B.O.W. As she would shriek out more in pain, as she would say this, ah, it hurts, it hurts. As Belle would say this, damn, so that's my skill? As Bet and Loki would say this, what the? As Bet would say this, what the heck was that? As she would say this, being Loki, I think that's his skill. As Belle would say this, huh. So how do you feel about that, you damn B.O.W? That hurts. As he would start healing, as this monster, or should I say B.O.W, would start saying this, you must die. As something happens to her. While she was getting ready to make another attack, head would be split open like a flower, as she would die in an instant. As both, like, all three of them would say, what? as they would see in front of him, or at least in front of them, the same man from last video, or should I say, in the last end of the video, as he would say this. What a failure. As he would crush the head of this, well, thing, this B.O.W, as Bell would say this. Who the hell are you? As he would say this. Hello there, Mr. Bell. Or should I say, as he would give off this terrifying smile, as he would say this. Tyrant Type 0. As he would say this. Wait, that's my... As he would say this. Otherwise known as Tyrant Type Zeus. As everybody, or more specifically, both, well, Loki and Beth would just say, "What?" As he would say this. It's been a while. Or at least, it's my first meeting you. After all, the doctor did told me about you. Especially it comes to your fighting prowess. But unfortunately, I'm not really into fighting right now, but I am collecting data for this disgrace of a B.O.W. As he would crush the head of the monster, or the human. As Bell would say this, "How do you know me?" And as he would say this, "Oh, don't you remember the great doctor? Dr. Ragnar. Do you heard of the name? Or do you perhaps remember it?" As Bell would just stop as he would say this. "Dr. Ragnar? He's not dead?" As he would say this. "Yes, Dr. Ragnar did help me, collect my senses, including giving me this power, the power even greater than the gods." After defecting my so-called god, I think his name was it's been a while since I remembered that stupid god's name. Wait for a second. I think her name was Izanagi or something, but I mostly forgotten her after I got this power. And then seeing her go back to heaven after betraying her and the rest of my familia. Oh, that was fun. As everybody would just be in shock. As Loki would say this. You killed her?" As he would say this. "What? It was just an accident." "Not really an accident. More like a choice encounter. He gave me power. He gave me a choice. He gave me my own destiny. He gave me a new life. After being beaten down, being disgraced by that so-called familia, I finally got my revenge on them. So, how about you, Mr. Tyrant Type Zeus? How's your life living as a Loki familia member? Is it great? After all, they are the greatest out of all the familias right now." As Bell would say this. "Shut up." As he would say this. "Oh, being a bit defensive." As Bell would say this. Don't you ever. As he would say this. "What? Are you sad that your own mother, Dr. Nikitich, even fucking died?" As Bell would just have it. His limit is just basically broken. As he starts charging at him. As he would say this. "Devour!" As start bringing up his shield, as the shield would start opening its mouth, getting ready to chomp on him, as he was too fast, basically disappearing and kicking him right in the back, as he would say this. "That's a bit mean. After all, we are technically siblings now. After all, we're basically the same." Unfortunately, I'm not tethered by these moralities, these humanities. I'm not even connected to humanity anymore. I'm a weapon now. A weapon that can destroy even the gods. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any time for you pathetic peasants. I should be leaving now. After all, Dr. Ragnar is probably pretty angry with me. So, I hope we see you again, Mr. Bell. Also you, Loki Familia, later aka Loki. And for you, Mr. Doggy. Yeah, I think that's a great nickname. As he would start charging at him, being bet, as you'd start shooting out flames, burning him, as he would say this, "How do you like that for calling me?" As he would look over, as he doesn't seem to be effective, as he would say this, "What? I thought your flames were pretty strong, but unfortunately, my skills are even more stronger than yours." As they would see his scales, these scales basically covering him, as Beth would say this, "How the hell?" As he would say this, "Enough chit chatter. I'm quite tired of this now. I should be leaving after all. Dr. Ragnar is probably going to be disappointed in me." Uh, Hope to see you again, Mr. Bell. See ya. As he would give a little bit of like a finger gun at him, as he would disappear, running at like Mach speed, as leaving nothing more than slugs, which Bell recognizes. As Beth would say this, "Those bastards! That bastard! How dare he dare! Like, he pisses me off." As Bell would say this, "Hey, calm down." As he would say this, "And what the hell are like? What the hell did he talk about? Like tyrant type Zeus? How are you named after a god? Not only that, they used to be most powerful god. Like all of them, like used to be at least, but still." As Loki would say this, "Hey, calm down." And Bell, can you please talk about, what he said about you being a tyrant type Zeus or whatever?" As Bell would just sigh as he would say this, "I guess I should probably talk about more of my backstory then." So, after explaining that he's tyrant type Zeus, aka new passion project for the Umbrella Corporation, she would say this. "So you're saying that, or at least these gods, or at least the gods from your world, existed, and they have the same names as, us?" As he would say this, "Yeah, for you, Loki, you're a trickster god." As she would say this, "I guess that makes sense." As he would say this, "As for Zeus, the reason why I'm named that is because I'm one of the most powerful, even the most powerfulest out of all of the tyrants, which are considered as the best of the best in the Umbrella Corporation." As Beth would say this, "Really?" As Bell would say this, "Yeah, but I feel disdain." As Beth would say this, "Really?" As he would say this, "Yeah, I hated it. I hate that I was being turned into nothing more than a weapon. I'm just a kid. I just want to live a normal life, okay?" As one of them would say this, being Loki, "I know what you mean. I mean, I am a goddess, but I just want to have a normal life. Maybe even tricking some people and, having a bit of fun time, if you know what I mean." As Belle would say this, as usual. As Beth would say this, "Anyway, what is he talking about, that Dr. Ragnar guy?" As he would say this, "He was the man that tortured me, the one that used me, and one of the most darkest, the most evilest out of all of the Umbrella Corporation. And I hated him. And I can't believe he's fucking alive." As one of them would say this, being Loki, "Whoa, you're completely mad. I've never seen you like that before." As he would say this, "I just hate him. I hate him." As Beth would say this, "Even though I hate you, I still kind of think that's true. I mean, I would definitely hate that guy if he experimented on me and turned me into, you. So, maybe we can get our revenge, if you get my drift. As he would say this. I guess so, Bet. As he would say this. Yeah. As one of them would say this, being Loki. Finally, you finally agreed on something, both of you. As Belle would say this. Whatever. We should probably leave. As Bet would say this. Yeah, agreed. So wait for a second. So, as all three of them leave, they would report this to the guild. Except for the whole, B.O.W. thing, because that would raise a lot, and I mean a lot of suspicion, and Belle is still wearing the mask. So, after explaining all of this, all of them would be really, really concerned. So, yeah, let's just say they were kind of concerned about, everything that they said. So, yeah, after they started leaving, they would leave as something interesting happens, to say the least. So, while they were basically leaving, they would get some rest. Not really interesting all that much, but still, as everybody's basically taking a rest, let's move to a different perspective. In this case, Loki. Loki would be so weirded out. Apparently, in their world, they were considered as gods, but they were never real. Kind of. They did worship them, but they don't know if they're actually real in that world, or at least the people think. So she was just like, so you're telling me that in that world, I'm basically just a legend? This is weird. She would sigh as she would say this. Not only that, this Ragnar guy basically experimented on little old Belle, and he was just a kid. What did he do? And whatever the hell he is, I want that guy to be punished. I want that guy to be killed. Even though Belle is basically not even a normal kid. In fact, he's not even from our world. He's just a kid. A kid with dreams. Not a damn weapon. She would slam her fist on the table as she would say this. I'm gonna help Belle out. She would start smiling as this is gonna be the end of the episode. I'm sorry that's going to be the end of this episode because, well, my throat is hurting a lot. So, yeah. So, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!